Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Tales from the Darkness. Gather round and try to stay in the light. Some of the others from the dark aren't quite as civil as I am, and I hate cleaning up that mess. The Hotel Basement, from JohnnyCalibre. This happened in the summer of 2010, when I was just entering my teenage years. My family took a trip to a really nice hotel in the city. I can't really remember why we decided to take the trip, but I remember a lot of family friends coming and staying in adjacent rooms. I've never asked my parents, and it's not really important to the story. To preface, I am a bit of a scaredy cat, and always have been. I'm a pretty skinny, fragile kid, so I get spooked pretty easily, even now. This, however, was almost definitely not me freaking myself out like I normally did. Looking back, I'm incredibly lucky I trusted my instincts. This hotel had a strange design to it. The lobby was actually on the 4th floor, not the bottom floor, which I found strange. To access the lobby, you had to use the elevator. There was no way for you to get to it from the stairs. This information would have been nice before everything happened, as you'll find out. The hotel was organized in a square shape. Every floor was lined with a balcony, and you could look down into the lobby and cafe from your floor. Essentially, if you were walking to your room, you could be seen from anyone that was on your floor if they just stepped out of their room and looked around. I was always afraid I'd fall over the balcony and sail down 8 stories to my death, but they were high enough to a point where I wasn't too concerned for my safety. The first day or two was nice. My friends and I hung out and played cards all day, or we watched whatever was on TV. At night, we'd explore the halls of the hotel and tell each other ghost stories. It was a really fun time, even though I didn't fully understand why we were there. On the 3rd day, though, things got strange fast. I woke up to the sound of screaming coming from outside my door. Now, because of the hotel's design I mentioned, sounds from the lobby would echo all the way up to the top of the building. So when I walked outside to investigate, I immediately looked over the balcony to see what the commotion was about. I saw a girl laying on the ground. Eggs and milk splattered everywhere around her. People were rushing to help her, and I heard a couple people telling each other to call 911. It seemed like the girl was unconscious. Maybe she had passed out or something. I scanned the lobby and saw that my family and a couple of my friends were in the lobby getting breakfast, all staring at the event in front of them. I decided I'd rush down to meet them and find out what had happened. The elevator was on the opposite side of my floor, so I took the stairwell located right next to my room. We were on the 7th or 8th floor, so I knew I only had to take about 4 flights down. Not a big deal. I descended for a little while, looking for the number 4 on the wall, or the letter L. I passed floor 5, ready to find the door to the lobby. I took about 2 more flights of steps before realizing there hadn't been a door for the 4th floor, nor had there been a door for the 3rd or 2nd. Now, at this point, I probably should have turned back, but I continued down because I was tired and I didn't want to climb back up. There were some weird side hallways that went into pitch black areas with a bunch of piping and wiring, and though I was curious to explore, I passed them by. I quickly hit the bottom floor, a dimly lit and cold room with cinder block walls and concrete floors. In front of me was a set of double doors. I hesitated at first, but I assumed that this was just another way back to the lobby, so I opened them and entered. Behind the doors was a massive warehouse-type room, probably the size of a smaller basketball stadium. The only light coming in was from the stairwell behind me, so I really wasn't able to see much. Chairs were stacked and covered in plastic wrap. Tables lined the wall, and in the distance, I thought I could see boxes stacked and lined against the wall as well. It was probably the storage room for the hotel. I looked around and saw an elevator in the back of the room, so I made my way towards it. I closed the door to the stairwell and began to walk in the dim light. The room was super muggy and dusty, and it seemed like nobody had been down there in a long time. As I got closer to the elevator, I noticed it was a bit bigger than elevators in the lobby and other floors. I pressed the up button, but got no response. There was a card swiper next to the button. Must have been for employees only, I thought. I turned back towards the stairwell doors, making my way past the chairs and tables along the wall. When I got to the door, I gave it a tug. Locked. Of course. This is when things started to hit me, and I realized I was stuck in the dark, dusty basement of a hotel. I didn't have a phone because my parents wouldn't let me get one until I graduated middle school, so I couldn't call anyone. Everyone likely assumed I was still asleep in the room, so I began to freak out, believing that nobody was going to look for me. I searched around the warehouse, looking for other ways out. Some areas of the place were better lit than others, so I looked around in the areas I could see first, before starting on the darker side of the room. There was one other set of doors that I found, but it happened to be locked as well. I began to cry, scared that nobody would ever find me in this basement. I swear it felt like hours, but I think only a handful of minutes passed before I heard the door creak open. It wasn't the door from the stairwell, rather the second door I had found. A slim, middle-aged man in a lab coat came out of the doors. Now, if this was 21-year-old me seeing this man, I would be very confused as to why this guy was wearing a lab coat in a hotel. I was only 12 or 13 at the time, so I immediately was relieved at the sight of an adult who looked smart. I approached him, tears in my eyes, and he immediately looked surprised to see me, as you'd expect. "What are you doing down here?" he yelled. "I got lost on my way down to the lobby, and I've been locked in here. Do you have a key?" I was shaking, eager to get out of there. He didn't answer my key question, and instead he said, "I know a way out of here. Follow me." He began to walk towards the doors with the stairwell, and I followed, relieved that someone had finally come to save me. We approached the doors, and I began to reach for the handle, but he continued walking. "Isn't it right here?" I asked him. I will never forget the look on his face when I said that. He looked nervous, and though it was dim, I could see sweat glistening from his forehead and behind his glasses. "No, this way," he said sternly. I continued to follow him, but I was now nervous myself. We had passed the door to the stairs, and we were now headed towards a darker side of the basement, away from the elevators. He looked like he had no clue where he was leading me, as he kept checking around him, almost as if he was taking in his surroundings for the first time. We turned a corner and began walking towards the boxes, a dead end. I immediately froze, realizing that something was very, very wrong. This guy had no idea where he was going, nor did he appear to work at the hotel. I spoke, my voice shaking. "Okay, where are we going?" He turned and said, "This way, just follow me." I knew that there were no doors by those boxes. I had checked there first after I found the stairwell door was locked. I want to thank whatever God is up there for gifting me with the idea I had next. I started yelling, as loud as I could. I yelled so loud I gave myself a headache. The man, irritated and plugged his ears, began yelling back at me. "What are you doing? Be quiet!" I continued to yell. I don't even remember how long I was yelling. Finally, the man snapped and began quickly walking towards me. I went in a full sprint towards the stairwell doors, hoping to God they'd somehow magically open. He didn't run after me. He walked sternly behind me, muttering things like, "Stupid kid," and other kind compliments. I was about 5 feet from the door when somebody burst through, my savior, a hotel janitor who had heard the screaming from the stairwell. He saw the situation, me and some random guy in a lab coat in a locked basement, and immediately told me to get behind him. The janitor asked me who the man was. I said I had no idea, that he had come in through the door on the other side of the room, and I pointed to the door. The janitor quickly radioed in to the desk that he had found a child in the basement, and quietly, so that I wouldn't hear, he said, "This man came from outside. Get security." Or something like that. The man in the lab coat started trying to argue with the janitor, claiming that he simply was looking for a bathroom. The janitor clearly wasn't buying it and kept saying things like, "Wait till security gets here and talk to them about it." I was standing beside him the whole time, trying to take in what was happening, confused out of my mind. Eventually, an employee from the front desk arrived and took me back up to the lobby where I met my family, who surprisingly had no idea I was missing. I told them the story, crying and shaking, and they hugged me tightly, thanking the employee over and over for their help. I never got to thank that janitor though. Looking back now, I have absolutely no clue what that man was doing in the basement. I don't have any information as to what happened afterwards, or who he was. I know for a fact that the incident with the girl in the lobby was unrelated, something about low blood sugar. Not sure. I've thought about that day a lot, and the only explanation I can put together is that the door I had found in the basement led to the streets of the city, where he must have wandered in from. I have no clue what his intentions were, why he was wearing a lab coat, or why he chose to pretend to know a way out. To be frank, this could have just been a huge misunderstanding of some sort, and I just chose a really bad time to get lost. But all I know for sure is, if I hadn't screamed my lungs out, I might not have been telling this story the same way, or at all. So, strange man in the lab coat wandering around a dark, dusty hotel basement. Let's not meet. Targeted in an Australian shopping centre. From Anonymous. This happened at a large shopping centre in Adelaide, South Australia, a couple of months ago. For some context, it was around 7 p.m. on a late trading night, already completely dark outside. I was shopping with my partner and she went into a clothing store, both to make some returns and also to try on some replacement clothes. I knew it would take a little bit of time and I'm not overly interested in women's clothing, so I stood outside in the very busy center and was responding to some work emails on my phone, paying very little attention to all the people walking past. After about 5 minutes, I was approached by a fairly young-looking gentleman, early to mid-20s at most. I'm 23 myself, with a very strong European accent, possibly French, who said to me something along the lines of, "You were with a girl, yes? She was looking for you. She came up to me, I think, because we are wearing similar shirts and thought you were me." Thinking back at it, other than the buttons, our shirts were not similar at all. He told me that she was trying to find me and made it seem like something was wrong and insisted he could show me where she went. I looked into the store and couldn't see my partner. It was a fairly small clothing store inside the center. You could see all of it from outside. I found out later she was just in a changing room. I was extremely confused at the time. My partner knows I would just be aimlessly pacing in circles outside as I do when I'm reading emails, and would never walk off looking for me. Not to mention, she could have texted or called. Although confused, he was moving away fast enough that I didn't have time to ask many questions, and not being able to see my partner convinced me to at least follow where he was going. There had to have been hundreds of people around, so I wasn't very worried for my own well-being. As I followed the gentleman, I was leaving a good 2 or so meters between us walking behind. I don't remember feeling overly unsafe or concerned about being near him, just extremely confused and unsure. He could see that and kept repeating something along the lines of, "This isn't a joke, please believe me, I want to help. Come with me, she went this way, I saw where she went." We had only been walking for about 10 seconds at this point, but covering a fair bit of distance from the store I was originally at. I said something like, "Where was she going? What did she say to you?" And he told me, "Sorry, my English isn't very good. She is this way." We kept walking like this for another 10 seconds before we reached the doors to the building. We were on a side of the center that has doors leading to both a car park and a large loading dock for one of the supermarkets. Although busy in the center, there was almost no one around the doors going in and out. He walked straight outside and said something along the lines of, "She was sitting just on this bench, I don't know where she went." Other than a small bit of light under the cover where a bench is, it was completely dark as soon as you walked any further away. I walked up to the point where the automatic doors open, but no further, and looked, 1 foot outside, 1 foot inside. He said something like, "She must have walked this way, come, I will help you find her," and started to walk left, which only leads to a dark and secluded loading dock, not visible from the doors. You could tell the urgency he was trying to convey to follow him. I was already very confused and unsure up until that point, but as soon as it happened, I knew that whatever he wanted me to follow him down there for wasn't good. It was one of those moments where you piece it all together and realize how many warning signs you somewhat noticed but ignored. I instantly felt like I was in danger. I remember saying, "All good, thanks, I'll call her," and just turning straight around and walking back inside. I turned around after a few seconds and couldn't see him outside anymore. Although it felt like a long time, all of it had transpired in about 45 seconds from when he first started talking to me. It was at this point that I texted my partner, who let me know she was still at the same store. At the time, I said to her that I think I was almost abducted. A bit over the top, especially for a fairly large 20-year-old bloke, I think. I'm assuming if I went down there, I was probably getting robbed. I'm glad I will probably never know. Get in the car. I just want to talk to you. From Aurorallly. This happened 2 to 3 years ago, but I still think about it every now and then when I'm walking alone and no one's around. I was volunteering at a school in a rural area, about 3 kilometers from my home. I didn't know how to drive, and I have an irrational fear of biking. That's another story. So I didn't mind walking home every Wednesday. I was 19 at the time, but just know that I looked at least 3 years younger. It was winter, it was cold, it was raining, and I had no umbrella. It's fine though, I like the rain, and I was covered from head to toe, so I still enjoyed my peaceful walk with music blasting through my earphones. But as I was walking, I saw something in my peripheral vision that I was always scared to see in a situation like this. A car slowing down, following me. I didn't know what to do. I tried not to assume the worst, and I turned to see whether that was the only car on the road or if there were potential witnesses in case something happened. Nope. Just this one car following me. No one else around as far as my eyes could see. Then, the driver lowers his window and I see his face. Old man. Seems to take care of himself, unfortunately. Not weak looking. Eyes fixed on me. "Where are you going? Would you like me to take you somewhere?" I took out one earphone and asked him to repeat himself. I had heard him because at that point I had already turned down the music to be more aware of my surroundings. Plus, despite not wanting to assume the worst, I still wanted to buy some time to think of an out. Where can I run? Can someone hear me if I scream? Can anyone else see us? Where can I get help? Well, there was no one and nowhere to run or really hide. I was walking in this very rural area, on the side of the road that has a field on one side and woods on the other. There was just one abandoned house up ahead, so I tried to reason with myself. This man is probably just concerned that I am visibly walking a long distance, right? I say, "Oh, no thanks, I'm fine, I like walking." "Oh, no, I don't care about that. I just want you to get in the car." "What?" Maybe he's concerned because it's raining and I don't have an umbrella." "Ah, no thanks. I know it's raining, but I like the rain, so I'm okay." "No, I don't care. I just want you to get in the car. I'll drive you to where you need to go." Really? I'm giving this potential kidnapper 2 expresses and he doesn't take them. His intentions are becoming clearer and clearer. I can't ignore this anymore, and he never breaks eye contact. Like he's analyzing my every move and reaction. I'm starting to notice that his smile is just starting to become more sinister too. Is it just my fear tricking me? This whole time, I'm trying to look as friendly and naive as possible, because I don't want him to realize that he can't trick me into getting into his car, and his only choice would be to use force. Remember, no one can hear me if I scream. "Listen, I just want to talk to you. Can I?" Well, okay. What is it?" No. I mean, I want to talk to you properly. Get in the car. I just want to talk to you." That's the only moment when he breaks eye contact, and it's to slowly look at me from head to toe. "Well, you know what? How about I park a little bit further and you can join me to have a chat?" "Ah, sure. I don't know if you'll find a place to park anywhere close, but go ahead if you want, sir. I'm only walking straight anyway." "Perfect. See you there?" "Yes, sir." He smiles and drives away. I wait for his car to be far enough so he can't see me, and I immediately run towards the abandoned house to hide while I make a call to my mom for her to come get me. The police wouldn't do anything since I'm not in immediate danger. We've tried to call them once after some serious threats from a stalker, and they just told us to only call them if the stalker was on our property. That's another story. I explain everything to my mom, and she tells me to send her a screenshot of Google Maps with my exact location, just in case something happens, and to stay hidden while keeping an eye on the road to see if the man's car appears again. I'm about to end the call when I see his car drive by again, and what do I see? He's looking right at me, as if he already knew exactly where I was hiding, waving at me with a smile on his face, still with this trying very hard to seem friendly vibe. He knows I'm hiding and on a call with someone now. He knows I wasn't as naive as I pretended to be. Then he just drives away. My mom is still on the phone with me, so I tell her what just happened, and she tells me to stay calm and wait for her. We end the call. I wait. He doesn't come back again. My mom's car appears much faster than I anticipated. I get in and we go home. I still can't wrap my head around what happened exactly and what could have happened. Sir, whoever you are, no matter what your intentions were, let's not meet again. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you want to hear more. You can now also listen to these stories on my Spotify podcast. If you have any suggestions for future videos, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And if you would like to have your story narrated, you can send it to storiesofdarkness55@gmail.com. And as always, pleasant dreams.